1,000 years. Your ancestors spent 1,000 years doing absolutely nothing worth remembering except dying of plague, getting their skulls opened by dudes in boats, and inventing a government so stupid, it makes TikTok trends look like the Renaissance. Welcome back. I'm Dr. Sardonicus, and this is the Midnight Meme Historian, the only place where history gets the beating it deserves. The video I'm about to eviscerate tries to sell you this as a story of nobles and kings, faith and warfare, culture and learning. Let me fix that sentence for you. Dumb idiots with swords, sky daddy paranoia, peasants eating dirt, and zero reading comprehension. Today, we're covering the Middle Ages. 1,000 years of Europe, collectively losing its mind because Rome got a headache and never recovered. By the end of this, you're gonna look at a knight in shining armor and see what he really was. A landlord who got really good at hitting things. Type 1 in the comments if your ancestors were also too stupid to maintain indoor plumbing. Let's begin. The original transcript starts with Rome's Pax Romana, 200 years of roads, aqueducts, heated floors, and actual literacy. Rome had a postal service. They had taxes. They had a government that could move grain across an entire continent without losing it. And then they discovered Christianity. And suddenly, everyone was too busy arguing about whether Jesus was divine or just really cool to notice the empire was collapsing. Here's what the original doesn't tell you. Rome didn't get conquered. Rome got so tired of managing its own mess that in 395, they literally cut the empire in half. Like a couple who can't afford a divorce but can't stand each other. You take the rich Greek half, I'll take the illiterate dirt half. Good luck, don't call me. The rich half became Byzantium, the poor half became Europe, now the barbarians. The original video calls them peoples on the move. I call them what they were, Rome's bouncers who realized the club was closing and just took the whole building. These weren't aliens. These were Germanic tribes Rome had been hiring for centuries. Hey, you guys are good at fighting, come guard our borders. Then the borders stopped paying, so the bouncers moved in. 476. A barbarian named Odoacer walks up to the last Roman emperor, a kid literally named Romulus Augustulus, which sounds like a third-rate gladiator you'd see in a stadium parking lot, and says, "Yeah, you're done. No epic battle, no heroic last stand. Just a barbarian with a pink slip and a very patient expression. That's your fall of Rome. A hostile takeover by a guy who probably couldn't spell his own name in Latin. The so-called Dark Ages begin. And they're called dark because everyone forgot how to read, not metaphorically, literally. Literacy plummeted so hard that for 300 years, the most advanced writing in Western Europe was a monk copying the same prayer book wrong for 50 years. Cities depopulated, coins vanished, roads decayed, trade stopped. The Roman transportation network, thousands of miles of stone roads turned into mud paths. Imagine waking up tomorrow and the internet is gone, money is gone, every city is empty, and the guy who owns the cow next door says he's now your king because he has a slightly sharper stick. That's the Middle Ages. Now the original video tries to be optimistic. They say 3 ingredients: Romans, Christians, barbarians. That's like saying a car crash has 3 ingredients: metal, speed, and stupidity. Technically true, still a disaster. By the 6th century, the Byzantine Emperor Justinian tries to reconquer the West. Big army, big plans, big ego. And what happens? He wins Italy, then immediately loses it to a new group of idiots called the Lombards. Because that's the rule now. Every time someone tries to fix Europe, a new batch of morons shows up with axes. Meanwhile, in the 7th century, the Islamic Caliphate sweeps through the Middle East, North Africa, Spain, and suddenly Europe is looking at a map going, wait, there are 3 civilizations now. And we're the poorest, stupidest, and most Christian one. Oh no. But then, and this is where the original gets really excited, Charles Martel wins the Battle of Tours in 732, stops the Muslim advance, saves Europe. Hero, right? No. Charles Martel was a warlord who got lucky. His real contribution was having a grandson named Charlemagne. And if you think Charlemagne was a great emperor, You've been sold a medieval marketing campaign that's lasted 1,200 years. Let's talk about Charlemagne. The original video calls him the first great power of the medieval West. That's like calling the first iPhone a great computer. Technically true, but mostly just embarrassing compared to what came before. Charlemagne spends decades conquering everyone around him. Saxons, Lombards, Bavarians, anyone who couldn't run fast enough. And in the year 800, the Pope, who is terrified of the Lombards and needs Charlemagne's army like a scared dog, needs a big owner, decides to crown him Emperor of the Romans. Now watch the staging. Christmas Day, St. Peter's Basilica. Charlemagne is praying. The Pope walks up behind him and plops a crown on his head before Charlemagne can notice. And Charlemagne, in front of every noble, bishop, and soldier in Rome, acts surprised. Oh, an empire for me. Gosh, I had no idea this was happening. What a coincidence that the Pope just happened to have a crown ready. This is so sudden. It's the most transparent, cringy, theater kid power move in recorded history. And you know what? It worked. For 1,200 years, historians called him great because he looked surprised on Christmas. But wait, it gets worse. Charlemagne's empire lasts exactly one generation, because in 843, his 3 grandsons look at their inheritance and say, "I don't want to share." So they sign the Treaty of Verdun, split the empire into 3 pieces, and invent France, Germany, and a middle chunk that immediately disappears. That's how modern Europe was born. 3 emotionally stunted men who couldn't figure out how to share a continent. Now the 9th and 10th centuries arrive, and Europe gets what it deserves: the Viking Age. The original video calls it Europe under siege. I call it Europe realizing there are consequences for being illiterate and unarmed. Vikings from the north, Magyars from the east, Muslim pirates from the south. Europe is getting attacked from 3 directions simultaneously by people who have boats, horses, and zero respect for monasteries. And what does Europe do? Does it unite, build walls, invent something useful? No, it invents feudalism. In exchange, he promises to maybe protect you from Vikings if they show up, but mostly he just takes your stuff. That's feudalism. It's not a system. It's a protection racket that got really organized and lasted 500 years. Kings at the top weak, broke, constantly overshadowed by their own nobles. Lords in the middle slightly richer, constantly fighting each other. Knights at the bottom of the nobility, glorified enforcers who got a horse and called themselves elite. And at the bottom, peasants. Millions of peasants working the dirt, dying at 30 and never once asking, "Wait, why does that guy in the castle get to tell me what to do?" Because they couldn't read, and the guy in the castle had a sword. The original video calls feudalism complex networks of personal relationships. That's like calling a hostage situation a complex network of personal negotiations. Now, here's where the original transcript tries to get optimistic. The year 1000. The transcript says Europe was finally gaining stability and confidence. Why did they invent democracy? Did they have a revolution? Did someone finally stab the right king? No, the weather got better. That's it. The climate warmed up a little. Crops grew better. And the Vikings, after 200 years of stealing everything, got bored, settled down, and started going to church. That's the big turning point. The sun came out, and the boat guys decided to stop being pirates and start being landlords. Congrats, Europe. You achieved stability because it stopped raining and the local criminals got tired. But the original video cuts off right as things get interesting. They stop at the year 1000. They don't tell you what comes next. Here's what comes next. 300 years of growth, cathedrals, universities. Crusades, which were basically timeshare scams to the desert where you got to kill people for Jesus. And then the Black Death, which killed half of Europe and finally made peasants realize, wait, if there are only half as many of the United States, maybe we can demand better wages. That's how the Middle Ages ended. Not with a bang, not with a renaissance. With half the population dying and the survivors saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't give all our grain to the guy in the castle. Think about that next time you're mad about your rent. So here's the 10-year effect. After the year 1000, Europe starts building things again. Cathedrals, universities, actual governments. By 1200, you've got Magna Carta, Thomas Aquinas, and the first real cracks in the feudal system. The 50-year effect. The Black Death hits in 1348, kills 40 to 60% of Europe, and accidentally invents labor shortages, wage negotiations, and the slow death of serfdom. The Renaissance doesn't start because everyone got smart. It starts because everyone who was too stupid to survive the plague died, and the survivors demanded better working conditions. Here's the parallel to today. You're living through the same thing right now. A system everyone knows is broken, leaders who can't enforce anything, local warlords sorry, tech billionaires running their own little fiefdoms. And the only thing that's gonna change it is a crisis, so massive it forces everyone to renegotiate. The Middle Ages didn't end because someone had a good idea. They ended because a plague killed so many people that the survivors looked at the castle and said, actually, no. Drop a comment. Who's more delusional, Charlemagne acting surprised at his coronation, or modern politicians acting surprised when their policies fail? I'll read the best ones next week. So what's the takeaway? The Middle Ages weren't a civilization forged. They were a 1,000-year hangover from Rome's party, where everyone woke up in a ditch, forgot how to read, and decided the best way to organize society was to give the biggest sword to the loudest idiot. If you enjoyed watching history get the beating it deserves, hit that like button. Smash subscribe if you want me to do the Crusades, which I promise is gonna be even uglier. And if you really want to support the show, check out the merch below. I've got shirts that say my other castle is a pyramid scheme and feudalism, because democracy is hard. Dr. Sardonicus out, go read a book, preferably one with pictures, you're gonna need them.